Welcome, bem-vindos, bem-vindos ao Immersive Talks do BRIFW, um evento criado para ser um laboratório de novas experiências entre moda e tecnologia. Se essa é a sua primeira visita ao nosso conteúdo, não deixe de acessar o site brifw.com, onde você poderá assistir todas as conversas estimulantes dessa primeira edição e, inclusive, rever essa que iremos começar agora. Meu nome é Isabel Junqueira, e eu estou muito empolgada de conversar com o Nicolas Bazarian, gerente de produção sênior da Pantone e um dos responsáveis pela inovação dessa empresa fundada no início dos anos 60 em Nova Jersey, nos Estados Unidos. A Pantone, como vocês devem saber, é a principal referência de sistemas codificados de organização de cores para diversas indústrias, inclusive a indústria da moda. A Pantone também trabalha muito com tendência e eu não sei se vocês, como eu, ficam sempre curiosos para saber qual vai ser a cor Pantone do ano, que é sempre revelada, inclusive agora no final do ano. Estou louca para saber qual vai ser de 2021. Mas hoje eu e o Nick a gente vai conversar sobre a transformação digital da cor em fluxos de trabalho na moda. Nick, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you, Isabel, for having me.
Well, the fashion design process used to be very physical, and that has been changing a lot. I think 2020 was a game changer with social distancing, home offices, and you've been working in Pantone since 2015, right?
That's correct.
I wanted to know a little bit, how did the color aspect of the fashion design process evolve in the past 5 years?
It's been really interesting to see. Even since I started in fashion and color in 2015, we always knew that there were certain fashion brands and the supply chains that they worked with were interested in bringing digital into their entire workflow, but the pace of it was very slow, and so I think, it's one thing to express your ambition. It's another thing to actually change it. And for many brands, they would say that they wanted to change, but they didn't. And I think it's just a matter of it's hard to disrupt something that's been done a certain way for a very long time. And through the years, the change was very slow, and that was pretty consistently seen in both Europe and the United States and in some of the supply chain partners that these brands work with in Asia and other parts of the world. And then, this year hit and everything changed. COVID was a forceful mechanism to bring digital workflow steps, digital tools, a reliance on digital tools as opposed to only physical tools into this process. And so, we've seen some of our customers, some of the brands we work with have been very quick to jump and try things out and in some cases see some good success. Others have jumped in partially and it seems to be working for them and they're continuing to make changes. And then others are struggling a little bit as they, an example would be, they introduce, more color selection that's made on screen. But then, when that color is produced later on, it's really not what they expected because they only saw it on screen. And so they've had to scramble and try to find some fixes. So this is as it is in many industries, not just color and fashion, but many others, this year has been a catalyst for a trend and, a change that we've seen to digital that's been a long time coming.
Yeah, so I think now we have to talk about Pantone Connect, which was the big launch this year. It was launched a little bit after confinement. And so explain to us a little bit about it and how long have you been working in this project? Because it was perfect timing, right? And how can Pantone Connect improve workflows in fashion?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we were starting down this path based off of feedback that we had from customers as early really as 2017 about how to make use of Pantone, use of the physical Pantone swatch, more physical in nature, or more digital in nature. And so, we started with some basic technology in 2018 and started kind of understanding where we wanted to take it. And when COVID hit, we were far enough down the development of the technology we had that we felt we could really go full on and try to bring something to market. And so the result is it's a digital color platform, Pantone Connect, that makes access to Pantone colors in any, whether it's the graphic design market or fashion design or home goods, made access to these colors very easy, and brings a lot of the color visualization tools and color conversion tools that a designer might need when they're working digitally. It brings it to their fingertips so that they can capture color, they can curate that color digitally, and then they can design with it and collaborate with it very easily. And a key difference between Pantone's, like our own software and maybe some of the software that, other, designers might be using in other systems like in Adobe or some PLM systems or CAD systems, is that our software and our system is really focused on color libraries. And really the use of a library as a tool to pick the right colors before you design, and essentially taking the sources of error out before the design process even really begins. I could show a very quick...
Yes, give an example so we have an idea.
Certainly. Well, first of all, I'll start off just showing on my webcam here. One of the key parts of this is that this is a platform, which means it's available on your mobile app, on a mobile app, on the web, and in Adobe. And the mobile part of it is really about capturing color. So we have mobile app with all of the different color systems in here. Very easy to access the color. And what's new and unique about this is we have this card here called a color match card. And there's a little hole in the center of it, I think you can see, and a bunch of colors around it. And this is a color calibration target where you can place this over some sort of colored surface, like, put it on my shirt or anything I have. And using the phone, the card will actually calibrate your phone to give you an accurate reading of what that color is. And so
because depending of your camera or the lighting where you are, obviously you have different results, right? So that's the difference with the card.
Exactly. That's it. It takes the error from the surrounding lighting and even from the camera itself and your own eyesight. It takes it out of the equation. So it's a much more accurate way to start with color, going from physical to digital.
And so you get the card at Pantone, the website. How does it work?
Yeah. So depending on where you live in the world, you either purchase from Pantone directly from our website. We also have dealer partners globally. In Brazil, we have an excellent partner that runs our Brazil website where you can order these cards from. And actually we've seen a lot of our core designers in Brazil have actually really picked up on using this already as a system, which has been exciting to see. The rest of the platform, I'll just share very briefly what this looks like. And please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so I've got, this is just our web version, but we talk about capturing color. There are other ways to capture color. You can drag in images, and in this case, I'll pull up a picture of a stroller here just to illustrate what you can do with this. But you can pull in imagery that ultimately ends up becoming a source of inspiration. This is probably a very bad source of inspiration, but it's an example nonetheless. And then you can go ahead and create a color palette from this. So I could say demo outdoors stroller and save this. And this becomes the palette that I can then go and work with moving forward. And I can share this in a number of different ways, inspirationally, or I can just use this to start putting a mood board together.
Mm.
But from here, there's a way to iterate on colors. So, depending on what color you have, if I pick a color here, this strawberry, and I want to start finding color combinations that go with it, we have a variety of harmony tools and ways to navigate the Pantone system digitally to find color pairings that work well. So if I wanted to start, building colors that go with the selected hue that I have, I can start pulling them into a palette and curating this palette together. And again, a key is that I can save this, and eventually, build up a library of color palettes that I can then go ahead and start sharing with others. And so you can see here, I've had some others share different palettes with me. The key here is that, all the color work that normally would be done in a studio can be done through Pantone Connect. And that includes scrolling through different color guides that we have. We have every single color book available. So depending on what the designer is creating, they can access it and use it here. And if I picked a color, if I picked 705 here, I get all the color values for this. I can, view it full screen just to get a sense of what this would look like on screen if I was designing it for, on-screen consumption. And then similarly, if I wanted to navigate to a nearby color, and I think this is where, working in fashion, becomes pretty challenging to do things digitally. We've created an easy way to go either to navigate by different hues, different levels of saturation or light and dark, to basically find nearby colors until you feel like you've settled on the right set of colors that you want for your palette. And then the last piece of this, which I won't show just for time's sake, is that all of this is available on the web, but it's also available in Adobe. So if you are designing in Adobe software, you can pull these colors straight into your design file, rather than having to go hunting down for color values and trying to guess whether or not you have the right Pantone colors. It's all there.
Yeah.
So this is just a very short demo. I won't go through the whole tool set, but it's freely available for designers to go and access. So.
Yeah. So I asked you about the workflow. How did it change in the last 5 years? So now I want to know, how do you see the fashion design process in 5 years?
So, great question. Actually, just before I jump in, is my screen still sharing, or do you see me?
It's no, I see you.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so in the next 5 years, we see a continuation of this digital trend, and I think the aspiration remains because of some of the key drivers of really, let's say, sustainability and finding the right colors, using colors at the right time, which is, it's trend, but it's also analytics. It's really a reliance on digital technology, digital solutions that were really on the fringe beforehand. They're going to become mainstream. And so, if you think about the design workflow, at the very beginning of this workflow, trend has always been such a key part of picking the right color for the right season. If you can bring more analytics into trend so that, you can even be more on point of what exactly you're trying to convey to your target customer, then really that level of personalization and accuracy in color is going to be more relevant to more of the customers that a brand is trying to reach. And then for the design process, what we're seeing is really there's a reliance on digital more than physical, where the physical tools are like a last check to see that the color is okay before the fashion goes on to be produced. And I think we're going to almost get to a point where, the physical standard, it comes in once or twice at the beginning or at the end of the design process, and that's it. We haven't seen these go away yet. What happens is a lot of people get into trouble and they go back to the physical standard. We think that will continue to be the case, but that integration of these digital standards with the physical standards with the digital, the way to work between those two is going to be basically seamless. And then with supply chains have typically been the biggest source of waste in the design process and the production process, and really the biggest opportunity for brands to make a statement that, you know, they are sustainable. They can, you know, get to market faster. They're really, you know, they're more tech savvy. I think, you know, much of the work that was physical and involved lots of travel and lots of samples and waste, it's going to be cut out of the process because the standards are used in a digital format. All the color is communicated quickly and easily. So all of these tools are coming together right now, and we'll see the adoption over the next 5 years.
Yeah. Well, we'll always need to wear clothes. So fashion will always be partially physical. Yeah. We'll always have a physic aspect. But it's undeniable that our lives and our presence in the digital world is getting stronger and stronger. And digital clothing 5 years ago, it was something kind of, you know, weird, and now it's losing the Black Mirror aura, and it looks like it will be something mainstream very soon. How do you see this change?
Yeah, you know, honestly, it was something that I was not even aware of until this year, that it was sort of a, you know, like a coming thing. And when I learned about it, I think I was reading something in March or April about digital clothing. It's like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
It is I think about how, you know, in product management, how we develop products and how we want to understand as early as possible whether a concept is really going to sell and really going to resonate with people. And you know, the way you do that is you get something out very quickly and you see how people take to it, whether it's a prototype or a sample or whatnot. And to me, digital clothing is just that. I mean, it is digital fashion. It's a way to be creative, to see how people take to your design, to see how they express themselves, and to get data almost immediately back on whether or not it was a hit.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to drive trend. It's going to drive fashion in a way that I think a lot of us didn't realize until very recently. So it's exciting, and I hope it becomes, you know, enough mainstream that it's sort of an accepted part of the fashion world. But that's my opinion on that last one.
So you haven't worked with any digital brands?
We have worked with, so there's different ways that we have helped brands out. I mean, specifically for Pantone, we actually see it coming from the tech world. So not so much, let's say, you know, fashion coming to us for solutions. We do some simulation of materials on the other side of our business, the X-Rite side of our business, that powers a lot of the prototypes that you see digitally. Mm-hmm. Where we see digital becoming a bigger challenge for people is a lot of tech brands have started out their concepts using RGB. Or, you know, it's not a real physical color. It's an on-screen color that they picked, that they put into their design or they put into their logo, and then they run into trouble when they actually have to make it real, because it's not a color that anybody could produce. So we've seen some tech firms come to Pantone for help because their logo and their branding, very prominent brands, by the way, they can't produce anything in real life for them, and we've actually had to help relocate their color from an RGB color to something that's physically achievable in the Pantone system. Yeah. And it's a big process because it impacts the brand significantly. So I could see this start to become very real in fashion as well, where if a fashion brand is designing completely digitally and it is very popular and they want to start producing it to sell in real life, you know, they may not be able to actually do that, and then they need help tying it to a physical standard. I think that's where Pantone will come into play.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that leads me to my next question. Last week I was in a Matisse exhibition at the Pompidou Center. And, as always, I was blown away by the colors, the textures, the pigments. And I thought, my first thought was, seeing this work of art live in front of me. And by work of art, I also include amazing design and fashion.
Yeah.
And I thought, seeing this in front of me, that this could never be reproduced digitally. It's not the same effect. But then I thought, you were talking about RGB colors. There's a whole, new colors, new textures. So tell me a little bit about the chromatic possibilities of RGB.
Yeah, RGB. We tend to think of from Pantone. We tend to think of color in color spaces and color gamuts, and maybe you think of a color gamut being sort of like a sort of area of possibility that a color can be created. And the smallest color gamut that we tend to work with is mixing CMYK colors for printing. Very small. You can't produce a very wide range of color using just those 4 CMYK colors. And with Pantone's main printing system, spot color, it's a much wider gamut because you're mixing, I think, up to 18 base inks, it creates much more possibility of colors that can be mixed and created and seen in this 3D space. RGB is a totally different thing because it's backlit. It's just light, mixing very bright lights together. And even within RGB, there are different ranges of RGB as technology gets better and better. As computer screens get better and better, the range of RGB color expands.
Yeah. And
it's really, it's really incredible because colors that we, in fashion that were, a process that was always done physically, that always sort of had an accepted range of color, now is this much wider. You're going to see some things that I think a lot of, maybe a lot of critics will say is wild. It's out there, right? But it's going to become more mainstream as design goes in that direction. And the question I think is, how will people accept that? Think of, you brought up the Matisse example. I mean, Matisse, when he was producing his art, it was so extraordinary because nobody had ever seen it before. RGB brings that same element as it enters fashion. At some point it will become accepted, but I think this is its time to shine and really catch people. So
yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah. Another thing that has been in my mind, and we have seen this in the last fashion weeks here and there, but the last fashion week in September that I covered, we've seen one color in particular that is very, very linked to technology and very symbolic, I think, which is the green screen. Or that is used in chroma key. And I don't know if you've seen the Louis Vuitton show, but it was amazing because it was in Art Deco building, La Samaritaine, and they covered everything with green screen.
Oh, wow.
And we also seen the green screen in some bags that the models were using. So it was crazy because they did 2 shows. The first I went to in the second one, and the first one I watched online. So you saw, the movie Wings of Desire being projected in the building and the bags. It was crazy. But when I saw it live in person, it was, green everywhere. So at Pantone, do you talk a lot about this green of chroma key, and what are your thoughts about this infinite color?
It's definitely it's pretty new to us, but I think it's more of a trend that we're seeing and it's an exciting trend where you have some of these major tech firms global tech firms really, jumping into the fashion space and expanding what's possible with fashion.
Yeah.
And it's, it's a great opportunity for them to show off what they're capable of, and show new ways that their technology can be used to create value for people. And similarly for these fashion brands, these designers, it's such an exciting way to get instant feedback from people.
Yeah.
And really push fashion to the brink of where it is, create more possibilities. So I would say, if anything, I'm more interested, and I'm all for it. I think it really opens up the possibility. And now, now that we're all working digitally, and we're meeting virtually, it's a new level of excitement that I think is brought, a new level of interaction that viewers get to see for this kind of fashion world.
Will the green screen be the color Pantone of the year?
I'll venture a guess and say probably not. And I think this was the color, I think in 2016, greenery.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Pretty close. So, I can't imagine we'd go too close to that color anytime soon. And, color of the year is very much a statement of how the world feels. And it's I'm not sure if that's how everybody's feeling right now, but we'll see. It's coming very soon. So yeah, color of the year, it'll be here before the end of 2020.
Okay, so now I have some questions from the BRIFW community that they sent us through our social media. So Bia asked, I dream of working at Pantone, and I wanted to know what's your background, how did you start working with colors?
Oh man. So I'll speak for the first part of that. You dreaming about working for Pantone. We are equally well, it may not seem like it from afar. We are equally a science company as much as we are a color standards and branding company. And so what that means is, there are a variety of skill sets, of types of people that we have here, but the love of color is certainly what binds everybody together. And for me personally, it's no different. I studied art. I was a painter in college, and really loved to work with color, and I knew how to mix color. And the early part of my career, I actually went in a different direction. I was working really as in IT and technology, and then technology is actually what brought me to Pantone. But it was sort of a desire to mix my technology experience with my color passion. So that was my opportunity to come into Pantone. But color comes up in fashion, it comes up in printing, branding, marketing, and certainly we have people from all walks of life at Pantone who have passion from different parts of color. And so, yeah, if you love color and you love the world of color and how it works, that's certainly the requirement, I think, that we have.
Okay. So next question is from Sophia. How does Pantone decide the color of the year? And do you participate in the process of selecting the color?
There is a lot of, so color trend forecasting is certainly, it's as much, I would say, skill and analysis as it is really, an understanding of your market. So you're mixing a feel for your market with your ability to analyze data and analyze what's going on around you. And so we have influential, I'd say, leaders in our own company that are involved with looking at what's happening through the year, and as well as working with some external partners who are also big voices in color trend. And, at some point during the year, this analysis all comes together. And, it's not that we necessarily immediately pick a color, but we start arriving toward a color, and then that color is eventually, let's say, decided. And then from that point, it becomes, really, how do we want to tell the story of this color? And so for me, I'm not, as a technology product manager within Pantone, I'm not involved in picking the color. But, I do have some involvement in how that color is brought to market in my products, because it does become an influential color for the next year, and people want to be able to design with it and understand it. And so, I work with my team, my technology partners and our developers to make it easy to use and fun to use and understandable.
Yeah. We received many questions asking about the partnerships between Pantone and other companies. People asking if you have plans of launching a line of pen and pencils with your most famous colors. Another person asked if you have plans of opening a store with a global reach where you can sell everything Pantone. So
yeah,
can you talk a little bit?
It's a surprise for a lot of people to find out. We really, we do a lot of these, let's say, branded products, and a lot of these partnerships, they're driven by partners. And so, for us, it's all about really talking about the colors and giving creative people the tools to work with color. But because the colors themselves are a statement, we get a lot of companies coming who are interested in partnering with us to make these different products. So I think one of the examples you brought up was a line of markers or a line of pencils.
Yeah.
We would be partnering with a manufacturer of these products, but it would really be driven by them and their interest in using Pantone as a way to really reach their market.
Okay.
But a lot of the partnerships that have come up recently, we'll be approached with some ideas, and sometimes the nature of the idea is very compelling. It makes a very positive social statement. In the U.S. this year, we had an influential image shared on social media of really a Black Lives Matter image using the Pantone logo over it. And it made such a quick, resonating impact with our core customers that it became something worth making a statement about. And we worked with that artist to bring their message out to the market. And so it's partner driven. A lot of times people come to us and we find the right partners to work with. So that's how we'll always continue to do it.
Okay. Well, Alana, it's another partnership question. She asked if there's a chance of partnership between Pantone and Apple for Apple devices.
It would be driven by Apple, certainly.
Okay.
And,
so it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, yeah, I think it's more a lot of these brands, if they feel that there's a story to tell to the market through Pantone color, they'll drive that, and we're happy to work with them. And we do so very frequently.
Laura asked, how will RGB colors change the way we connect with the world?
That's a great question. RGB, it makes things more colorful. It's simply because there are more colors that you can create with RGB. You can create very, very digital looking purples and very digital looking greens and yellows. And I think, that's going to almost bring the experience that you have on screen further away from the experience in real life in many ways. And so there's always going to be this sort of, comparison back and forth of physical, digital, and RGB. I can say it's going to continue to drive just a clear difference between what's seen on screen and what's physical. But it's going to continue to be a challenge for a lot of people to work with it as well. I guess that would be probably the other statement to make about it.
Yeah. João asked, in the difficult context that we are living, how can colors help us be more hopeful and optimistic? Is this something that Pantone think about?
It absolutely. And I think the color of the year for 2020, classic blue, was just that. 2019, little did we know how 2020 would really be, but in 2019, the feeling was that things were starting to become a bit turbulent as a general mood around the world. And classic blue was picked as the color of the year because of its calming and stabilizing effect. Mm-hmm. And it became such an on-point, accurate color for 2020 because things got even crazier in 2020. And this color that, really kind of calmed things down, it became this counterbalance to everything going on. And that's just one example. And I think, the color of the year for 2021 similarly will have some relation to what's happening in the world and how people are feeling. And it can be sort of that statement that is felt but not said. That's really the role that color plays. And it drives a lot of the products that we see in that year as well. And that's you start to see the blues and the other colors that might come in, really kind of taking their place in the world.
Yeah. So before I let you go, tell me a little bit of what are you working on right now?
Well, I am completely focused right now on Pantone Connect, and some really cool new features that we're going to be adding to it in the next few months. I would say maybe most exciting to the fashion world is there are a certain limited number of Pantone colors that are out there, and we know that there are many more colors that designers like to use beyond just the selection of Pantone. And so we're working on really how can we expand that range of color that we know is physically achievable. How can we bring it into the tool set? So, for people who love color and love a lot of color, those are the people who are really trying to focus on bringing the tools so that they can use and design with an incredible range. And then, a lot of data-driven technology that we're also looking at as well. And, I think data has just become everything for many companies, and Pantone is no exception. So I think, as you start to look at Pantone products today versus where they'll be in the next year, data will be a big part of it. And I won't go too much further because I probably shouldn't, but it's going to be
No, go further. Exciting. So, tell us more.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. Thank you for talking to us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much. These are great questions, and Isabel, it's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much. E muito obrigada pela companhia. Até a próxima.